The story opens with a painful memory. Gyro Auma recalls being ostracized for his unique ability to talk to animals, which others found creepy and unnatural. The sight of his broken phone suggests he just got into another fight, a recurring problem in his life. In a flashback, a younger Gyro sits with his white dog, Nachi. Confused and hurt by the world's judgment, he doesn't understand why he's different. Nachi comforts him, wisely stating that not being normal is amazing, because it means there are things only Gyro can do. It's a promise he doesn't yet understand, but will one day. The scene shifts to the present day, with a gritty, monochrome tone. A group of delinquents are trying to assert their dominance, but they've picked the wrong person. The now older Gyro Auma faces them, unimpressed and utterly bored by their threats. Enraged by Gyro's disrespect, the leader of the thugs lunges forward to attack. But in a split second, Gyro vanishes, leaving the delinquent stunned and confused. Before the thug can even process what happened, Gyro reappears behind him, launching a powerful kick that sends the thug flying into the water with a huge splash. Gyro coolly stands over the scene, identifying his evasive maneuver as the cicada shell technique. The remaining thugs are shocked, realizing they're not dealing with an ordinary brawler, but a trained ninja. With a cocky grin, Gyro taunts the remaining delinquents, telling them they seem like they need a handicap. Infuriated by his arrogance, one of them charges forward, ready to fight. A person Gyro just saved exclaims in gratitude. However, Gyro simply mutters that they're good-for-nothing trash, watching them walk away with a look of disdain. It's revealed that Gyro wasn't just defending people. A cat and a crow, his friends, thank him. They explain that the thugs have been terrorizing them, throwing trash and even shooting bottle rockets at them. As Gyro walks away, the animals express their concern, worrying the thugs might seek revenge. Gyro, maintaining his tough exterior, simply tells the crow he's used to it and threatens to turn it into yakitori. Despite his harsh words, Gyro gives a friendly wave goodbye to his animal friends, reminding the cat not to go raiding the trash cans. Gyro's return home is met with the furious face of his grandfather, who is already well aware that his grandson has gotten into yet another fight. An argument immediately breaks out. His grandfather scolds him, furious that Gyro is using the shinobi techniques he was taught for common street brawls. Gyro, ever the rebellious teen, yells back at the old-fashioned, violent geezer. His grandfather presents a katana, explaining that it's a treasured heirloom from the Edo period. He accuses Gyro of bringing shame to the Azuma family name, but Gyro just scoffs, saying it looks like a dull knockoff. Losing his patience, Gyro's grandfather hurls a sliding paper door at him. Gyro easily dodges and walks away, complaining that the old man has no chill. The grandfather tells Gyro to fix the door he broke and informs him that he'll be out for a neighborhood association meeting, leaving Gyro on his own for dinner. Gyro just replies with a defiant "huh." Having fixed the door, Gyro mutters to himself, wondering how long his grandfather is going to treat him like a child. Suddenly, he hears a familiar sound and wonders who it could be this time. It's the crow from before, and it's in a panic. Gyro recognizes it immediately. The bird frantically tries to communicate, mentioning a cat in the woods. Urged on by the frantic crow, Gyro wastes no time. He follows the bird as it leads him deeper into the woods at a rapid pace. Finally, the crow calls out, pointing him toward the spot on the forest floor. Gyro's eyes widen as he sees what the crow was trying to show him. He finds a black cat, lying motionless and heavily injured. Gyro is shocked by the state of the poor animal. The crow confirms it's not one of his friends. He just happened to find him. Gyro assesses the situation, noting that the cat is alive, but extremely weak. He knows he needs to treat him right away. Suddenly, a mysterious and powerful voice echoes in the darkness. It calls out to someone or something named Rigu, speaking of awakening from a long slumber by devouring the sun. The voice turns menacing and hostile. It declares that it will not lend its strength to anyone and commands the intruder to die. A terrifying eye glares out from the shadows, full of ancient malice. Despite the immense danger, Gyro's compassion overrides his fear, and he decides to save the creature. Sometime later, having successfully brought the cat back home, Gyro watches over it. The injured animal is resting on a beanbag in his room. It slowly begins to stir, its eyes opening. Gyro, relieved and surprised, realizes the creature has finally woken up. Back in his room, Gyro approaches the now-awake black cat with a bowl of water. He acknowledges how tough the little fella is to have survived such severe injuries, showing a surprisingly gentle and caring side. Gyro introduces himself, but is shocked when the cat speaks, questioning what is happening. Gyro, unfazed, simply asks if the cat has a name. The cat arrogantly calls Gyro an idiot, claiming he wouldn't understand the complexities of its existence. Gyro's temper flares, and he yells back. The cat is stunned, realizing with wide-eyed shock that this human can actually understand him. Still wary, the cat retreats under the furniture. Gyro tries to coax it out, explaining that he understands it must be surprising to meet a human who can talk to animals, but reassures it that he means no harm. The cat, whose name is Rigu, observes Gyro from its hiding spot. It can't sense any special aura, confirming Gyro is merely a human, which makes the situation even more baffling. As Gyro resorts to a last resort, Rigu defiantly vows not to move. Gyro's last resort turns out to be a simple bowl of food. The fragrant meal is too much for the hungry Rigu to resist. It cautiously emerges and begins to eat, as Gyro smirks, calling him a pretty simple fella. While eating, the creature proudly declares that its name is Rigu, and it is not a cat. Gyro is confused by this statement. Rigu recites a saying about the shame of spurning a meal, which Gyro finds odd coming from a cat. With newfound confidence from a meal, Rigu sits up proudly and makes a grand declaration. He is not a mere cat. He is a mononoke, a supernatural being who lives in the moment of eternity. Gyro struggles to process the word mononoke, thinking of monsters, apparitions, and evil spirits. Seeing his confusion, Rigu slyly thinks it might be able to trick Gyro into revealing what he knows about the supernatural world. Rigu explains that mononoke usually take the form of humans or animals, living innocently in cities, while some retire to forests or mountains. As Gyro listens intently, Rigu realizes the boy genuinely knows nothing about their world. Seeing that Gyro is clueless, Rigu begins to open up. It reveals that it was attacked by other mononoke, and because of a certain group, it was forced into a long, deep sleep from which it has only just awoken. Gyro asks why Rigu refused to join the other mononoke. With contempt, Rigu explains that it hates the idea of relying on the strength of others and trying to look good in front of comrades. Rigu admits that while it's a strange situation, it doesn't entirely disbelieve Gyro. For his part, Gyro honestly states he doesn't really understand what's what, but a human like him wouldn't be believed anyway. Gyro breaks into a wide, genuine grin. He says that for a human who can talk to animals, the existence of something like a mononoke isn't that far-fetched. He accepts Rigu's story without question. Rigu is taken aback by Gyro's simple acceptance, calling him a strange one. Meanwhile, in the same woods where Gyro found Rigu, a young woman with a ponytail reports into her section chief at headquarters. The agent, who identifies herself as Shiba, reports that she has discovered a bloodstain at her location. She confirms with absolute certainty that the blood belongs to Rigu. Her superior on the radio acknowledges her report and decides to put a search team together right away, believing Rigu is still in the area. He tells Shiba that her work is done for now. Shiba seems slightly irritated by the order to stand down, muttering to herself that she could have handled this much on her own. As Shiba leaves the woods, a sinister figure with a wide, toothy grin watches her from the shadows. A new, unknown threat is lurking nearby. Back at Gyro's house, he's giving Rigu a bath. He's astonished to see that the mononoke's deep wounds have already completely closed up. Rigu, annoyed, chastises Gyro for not believing him when he said he wasn't a normal cat. While cleaning the brush, Gyro mentions that this whole situation reminds him of his old dog, Nachi. He fondly describes her as a large, white dog who was as kind as a grandmother. Gyro reminisces about how he was constantly bullied in school and always came home covered in dirt and bruises, much to Rigu's angry bewilderment. He explains that Nachi was the complete opposite of the feisty Mononoke. In a touching flashback, a young Gyro washes Nachi after a fight. He recalls her comforting words, telling him to wash away all the negative feelings along with the dirt. She would tell him she was glad he was there, because with his kindness, she could be clean whenever she wanted. Gyro remembers Nachi's most important lesson, a piece of advice that has stuck with him all these years, to use his kindness to lend a helping hand to others. He realizes this is what she meant by something only you can do. Lost in the memory, he starts rinsing Rigu, who grumbles, thinking Gyro had said something. Gyro just tells him it was nothing, bringing the eventful bath to a close. Later that night, Gyro is fast asleep. Rigu, the mysterious Mononoke, sits quietly on the edge of the bed, watching over the boy as the clock ticks away the late hours. Speaking to the sleeping Gyro, Rigu admits that he's not a bad kid and offers his thanks. However, he also states that he cannot stay here for long. With a final, unheard farewell, Rigu prepares to depart, leaving Gyro to his dreams, completely unaware of the Mononoke's decision. Rigu struggles as he makes his way outside. He notes that while his wounds have closed, his strength has not yet returned, and he needs to get away from this place as soon as possible before he is found. Just as Rigu plots his escape, he is startled by Gyro, who has suddenly appeared sitting outside. Gyro casually points out that the Mononoke is limping. Rigu is stunned. Gyro reveals he used a ninja substitution technique, leaving a decoy in his bed. He asks the weakened Mononoke where he thinks he's going in his condition. Rigu coldly tells Gyro that it's none of his business. Gyro reminds him that he was the one who saved him, but Rigu scoffs at the very idea. With a piercing glare, Rigu dismisses Gyro's act of kindness entirely. "I don't remember asking to be saved," he states, his pride refusing to acknowledge any debt. Gyro's expression hardens with anger. Rigu continues, explaining that he had no problem with dying and that Gyro helped him of his own free will. He once again tells Gyro that his fate is none of his business, leaving the boy completely baffled. Gyro finally snaps. He can't comprehend Rigu's disregard for his own life. He furiously shouts, asking under what possible circumstances someone could ever truly be okay with dying. Pushed to his limit, Rigu unleashes a fraction of his true power. His form darkens and grows more monstrous as he gets sick of Gyro's complaining, threatening to tear the boy's windpipe to shreds. Rigu reminds Gyro of the vast gulf between them. He declares that Mononoke live in a different world from humans, and that he's a monster who eats people. As Rigu tells Gyro to stay away from him from now on, Gyro suddenly notices something. His expression shifts as he senses an unwelcome presence, musing that it looks fun. A large, intimidating man with sunglasses and small horns suddenly appears, smiling menacingly. He calls out Rigu's name, confirming he's another Mononoke who has been hunting him. Gyro immediately confronts the intruder, telling him to get out of his home. Gyro tells the horned Mononoke that he's pissing him off and demands that he leave. The creature just smirks, telling the impatient human to calm down. The horned Mononoke's arm transforms into a grotesque, clawed limb. He tells Gyro not to worry, because he's going to eat him now. Gyro can only stare in horror. The scene shows the full horror of the Mononoke's transformation, a massive, monstrous arm ready to tear Gyro apart, contrasting with the peaceful suburban background. The horned Mononoke tells Rigu his fun is over, but Gyro tries to intervene, yelling "Wait, dash!" and attempting to grab the Mononoke. But the enemy is too fast. Gyro, realizing the immense danger, grits his teeth. He echoes Rigu's earlier words, telling the small Mononoke to stay away from him as he understands they truly live in different worlds. The chase is on. The powerful horned Mononoke barrels through the forest, easily crashing through trees in hot pursuit of Rigu. As he flees, Rigu is taunted by his pursuer. Knowing he can't shake him, Rigu's only goal is to lead the enemy as far away from Gyro's home as possible. The horned mononoke easily keeps up, observing that this must be Rigu's full speed. He seems disappointed, having heard Rigu was weakened but still expecting a better chase. With incredible speed and power, the horned mononoke leaps through the air, contemptuously calling their pursuit a dull game of tag, as he easily closes the distance and snatches Rigu from midair. The horned mononoke grins triumphantly, his prey now captured. Rigu is helpless in his grasp, the chase having come to an abrupt and brutal end as the larger monster prepares to finish the fight. The forest falls silent for a moment, the empty clearing bearing the only faint traces of the chase. But the confrontation is far from over. The horned mononoke slams Rigu into the ground with contemptuous ease, taunting the smaller creature for his pathetic weakness. Rigu can only grunt in pain, unable to fight back effectively. Standing over his defeated foe, the horned mononoke mockingly asks if this is the legendary Mononoke, the renowned Rigu, the Black Star. Rigu can only growl in defiance. The villain reveals that his group went through a great deal of trouble to remove the seal that had imprisoned Rigu. He extends a false invitation, asking Rigu to come with them and claiming he'd rather not kill a comrade. Rigu scoffs at the word comrade, seeing through the deception. He accuses the horned mononoke of only wanting his power and defiantly challenges him to a fight to the death, right here and now. The horned mononoke accepts the challenge with a sadistic grin, agreeing to the fight but making it clear Rigu will be the only one dying today. Just as the horned mononoke prepares to deliver the final blow, Gyro leaps into the fray from out of nowhere, wielding his grandfather's katana and aiming a powerful strike at the villain. The moment is a blur of action and reaction, the flash of Gyro's blade, the horned mononoke's surprised expression, and Rigu's utter shock at the boy's return. Gyro's attack connects, but the horned mononoke manages to block the blade with his monstrous arm, sliding back from the force of the impact. The mononoke stares at the katana, now embedded in his arm. Rigu looks on, stunned into silence by Gyro's incredible feat. With the blade still stuck in his enemy's arm, Gyro stands his ground, ready for the next move. Rigu can only look on in disbelief, finally stuttering, "Kid!" Gyro furiously yells at Rigu, calling him an idiot for being so willing to die. He passionately explains that if Rigu dies, it means Gyro will have failed to save him, a failure he refuses to accept. The horned mononoke laughs at Gyro's stupid reason for fighting, reminding him this isn't a playground squabble. Gyro shouts back with unwavering conviction, "You don't need a reason to help people." Gyro reaffirms that he was the one who saved Rigu, and he's not about to abandon him now. He also adds that, realistically, the powerful Mononoke would probably come after both of them, even if he ran away. The enemy Mononoke sheds his human disguise, transforming into a massive, terrifying wolf-like beast. He's impressed by Gyro's bravery and, noting his skills and sword, correctly guesses he is a shinobi. The fully transformed Mononoke grins with predatory delight. He declares that a strange, skilled human like Gyro is actually worth eating. The beast lunges forward with devastating speed and power. Gyro is taken aback, realizing the sheer force he is now facing. Using his agility and training, Gyro executes his cicada shell technique, leaping onto the monster's back to evade the powerful initial strike. With a burst of speed, Gyro vanishes from the monster's back, attempting to reposition himself for another attack. The monster is momentarily left striking at empty air, but the Mononoke's speed is overwhelming. It instantly appears behind Gyro, impaling him through the chest with its massive claws and mockingly asking if he enjoyed his little flanking maneuver. With Gyro skewered on its claws, the monster tells him to give up, warning that the more he struggles, the more it will hurt. Gyro can only cough up blood, his life slipping away. In a final, desperate act of defiance, Gyro swings his katana and manages to slice off the monster's arm. Impressed, the mononoke leaps back, exclaiming, "Oh, dangerous!" The monster applauds the shinobi's willpower to counterattack after such a fatal blow. But Gyro collapses to the ground, a gaping hole in his chest. The monster notes with amusement that the boy can no longer hear his praise. Gyro lies motionless on the forest floor, seemingly dead. Rigu can only stand over his fallen body, a silent witness to the boy's sacrifice. As his severed arm rapidly regenerates, the horned mononoke dangles a twisted path to victory before Rigu. He suggests the ultimate act of pragmatism: devour the human's body, regain his legendary strength, and then, surely, he'll change his mind and join their cause. Rigu's gaze falls from a monster to Gyro as still form. The cruel suggestion hangs in the air, but instead of temptation, it sparks a different kind of fire. A silent, cold fury envelopes him, his power surging not just with rage, but with resolve. He utters a single word to shut down the offer: silence, before making a chilling promise: "I'll kill you." Looking down at Gyro's lifeless body, Rigu scolds the boy for being a selfish idiot. He says Gyro didn't stop to think why he left without a word, and because he ignored the warning to stay away, he is now dead. Rigu admits it's true that he could eat Gyro to regain his strength, but he refuses to listen to the horned mononoke suggestion. Instead, he makes a different choice. He tells the fallen boy, "You're gonna eat me," declaring that he owes Gyro a debt. Rigu decides to repay it now. A powerful dark energy erupts from Gyro's fatal wound as Rigu commands him to wake up. The horned mononoke watches in shock, realizing something is wrong. In a final, ultimate sacrifice, Rigu offers his own life to the boy who tried to save him, merging his very essence with Gyro's body. Far away, the agent Shiba is alerted by a sudden, massive surge of energy, sensing that the situation has drastically changed. Her section chief, Ichikawa, confirms over the radio that they've also detected the disturbance. As the horned mononoke roars Rigu's name in fury, Ichikawa gives the order for all forces to move in. The horned mononoke is enraged, screaming at the newly revived Gyro. He accuses Rigu of abandoning his brothers and siding with a human. But Gyro, his eyes now filled with a dark power, simply tells the monster to shut up. Gyro stands reborn. His body is now a fusion of human and mononoke, his arm and shoulder wreathed in black energy, and a mysterious symbol now emblazoned on his chest where the fatal wound used to be. Gyro, back from the dead, is completely bewildered. He looks at his transformed body and the strange marking on his chest, asking himself, what the fuck happened? Rigu's voice now speaks inside Gyro's head, telling him there's no time for confusion as the enemy is coming. The horned mononoke charges, furious that the two useless louts have merged into one. Empowered by his new form, Gyro easily dodges the monster's furious charge, moving with a speed and agility he didn't possess before. Gyro demands an explanation from Rigu, asking what he means by became one. Annoyed, Rigu's voice tells him to focus, that defeating the monster comes first. The monster attacks again, its power creating a shockwave. Gyro, still confused, yells out, asking how exactly he is supposed to defeat such a powerful foe. Rigu reassures him, saying he'll lend a hand. The instructions are simple. Gyro just needs to punch the monster as hard as you can. Filled with a surge of newfound power and determination, Gyro winds up for a punch, channeling all of the dark mononoke energy into his transformed arm. Gyro unleashes a devastating strike. His arm erupts into a massive torrent of black energy, completely engulfing and overwhelming the horned mononoke. The battle is over in an instant. The horned mononoke has been completely obliterated. Gyro stands panting, staring at the destruction and wondering, what was that? Gyro tries to piece together what happened. He recalls being hit, then seeing black smoke emerge from his own body. Confused, he looks at his hand and calls out for Rigu. Suddenly, a blade is at his neck. A voice, which he now recognizes as Rigu's, warns him from within, "Don't move." The blade belongs to the agent, Shiba, who appeared from nowhere. She holds him at knife point, remarking with a smirk that he has turned into something quite troublesome. Her superior, Ichikawa, appears behind her, calmly lighting a cigarette. He notes that this development was beyond their expectations. When Gyro asks if they're friends of the other monster, Ichikawa corrects him. Flanked by heavily armed soldiers, Ichikawa introduces his organization. They are not Mononoke, but the Public Bureau of Espionage, just respectable government employees. Gyro is surrounded. Ichikawa tells him that while he can probably guess the situation, they will explain the details later. For the present moment, they will be restraining him. Gyro is shocked by the demand. Gyro's temper explodes. He screams at them, furious that they can just show up and do whatever they want. As he's about to say more, Rigu's voice frantically tries to stop him, warning him about what he's about to say. The chapter ends with a full shot of the calm but deadly Agent Shiba, her blade still ready. Her silent gaze is a clear command. Don't speak. Before Gyro can say another word, Shiba knocks him unconscious. Ichikawa advises her not to do anything rash, but she calmly explains that she merely knocked him out with the handle of her blade, as it would have been dangerous if he had tried to resist. Shiba asks what their next move is. Ichikawa decides they will take Gyro to their hospital for treatment and examination, noting that it would be problematic if he died. As he looks down at the unconscious boy, he declares this kid is important, setting the stage for a new, mysterious conflict. Gyro finds himself in a strange, dark space, completely bewildered. He vaguely remembers meeting a strange cat, then being attacked by a monster. He calls out for the cat, Rago, and wonders where he is, noticing smoke flickering from his own body. Rago the cat appears, callously informing Gyro that he has a gaping hole in his chest and is on the precipice of life and death, much to Gyro's shock. Gyro suddenly wakes up in a bed, groaning in pain. He dismisses the entire horrifying experience as nothing more than a crazy dream as he clutches his aching head. But as he sits up, a sharp pain reminds him of the incident. He looks down at his chest and realizes with dread that it wasn't a dream at all. A young woman with reddish-brown hair informs him that he's been unconscious for nearly a day and a half. Gyro, still dazed, asks where he is and who she is, as she reports to someone on the phone that he's awake and fully conscious. Gyro becomes increasingly agitated as the woman casually discusses getting snacks over the phone, completely ignoring his questions. He angrily demands to know what's wrong with her. As the woman continues her phone call, Rago the cat suddenly materializes on top of Gyro's head, remarking that she isn't a very charming girl. Gyro readily agrees. A man with long, dark hair enters the room, admonishing the woman for hanging up on her boss. He seems surprised to see Gyro, questioning why he's only been sleeping. Hearing the commotion from the hallway, the man bursts into the room, yelling at Gyro and Rago to be quiet, reminding them that they're in a hospital. Gyro, in turn, yells back, demanding to know who he is. The man calmly walks in and tells Gyro Auma that he's glad to see he's okay, complimenting his durability. Rago addresses Gyro directly, telling him to show some respect and not to be so friendly. The man notes that the situation is better than expected, as Gyro doesn't seem to be hostile. The man introduces himself as Ryasuke Shiba and his subordinate as Ichika Kishimojin. Gyro demands the thorough explanation they promised him. Shiba acknowledges that Gyro's memory is intact and confirms that they are from the Public Bureau of Espionage. Shiba begins to explain their organization, asking Gyro if he's ever heard of the Anawaban, a group of shinobi from the Edo period. Gyro scoffs, saying he's not an idiot, which unexpectedly surprises Shiba. Shiba explains that with the changing roles of the new government during the Meiji Restoration, the Anawaban evolved into a shadow organization that doesn't officially exist, the Public Bureau of Espionage. He continues, stating that their main work involves domestic and international intelligence gathering and information manipulation, as well as the observation and elimination of mononoke. Shiba elaborates that in recent years, incidents caused by mononoke have become rare, giving his specialized section a rather comfortable position. However, that changed just yesterday, when one of their facilities was attacked by a group of mononoke. He then reveals that the target of that attack, the being that was hidden and sealed away in that facility, was none other than Rigu. Having finished his explanation, Shiba lights a cigarette and turns the conversation over to Gyro, asking him to recount how he ended up in his current situation. Their conversation is interrupted by a nurse telling them to be quiet. This sparks a shouting match between Gyro and Ichika, who berates him for being a crazy idiot who stuck his nose where it didn't belong and rescued a mononoke. While Ichika fumes, Shiba calmly cuts to the heart of the matter, stating that particulars aside, the main issue is that Gyro has merged with Rigu. Gyro stares at his hand, as a part of it seems to dematerialize into shadow. Shiba bluntly informs him that if they leave him this way, he'll remain like that until he dies. Shiba admits they don't know how to undo the merging, and since they can't predict what other mononoke will do, they will protect Gyro for the time being. Rigu adds that Gyro has no say in the matter. Gyro is outraged to learn that he's already been processed as a missing person by the police. Shiba coldly clarifies they are not heroes and have no obligation to respect his individual rights, effectively placing him under their complete control. Shiba drives the point home, telling Gyro he's not a kid anymore and must take responsibility for his actions. He then lays out the immediate plan. Gyro will be transferred to a different facility in the morning, and until then, he's to stay put. He leaves a bag of snacks on the bed before preparing to leave. As Shiba and Ichika leave, Shiba casually tells Gyro there are clothes and a towel in the closet and that he'll see him tomorrow. Gyro tries to call out to them, but they continue to walk away. Ichika pauses for a moment, glancing back at Gyro, who sits silently on the bed with Rigu beside him. Without a word, she simply scoffs and exits the room, leaving a frustrated Gyro clicking his tongue in annoyance. Outside, Gyro curses his situation. Meanwhile, true to Shiba's word, two men in black suits stand guard outside his hospital room door as one checks the time. Lying in bed, Gyro processes his new reality. He's under guard, officially a missing person, and effectively in confinement. He thinks of his grandfather, realizing with grim determination that at this rate, he'll never be able to go home. He turns his head, seemingly speaking to Rigu, and laments that this is exactly why he had told the mononoke to stay away from him in the first place. Gyro asks Rigu if he's going to get a lecture too. The cat, busy grooming itself, simply replies that it's not particular, as it's far too late for regrets. Rigu gives Gyro a dose of reality. It points out that Shiba's group, the ones who sealed it up, are now guarding them, while the group of mononoke that attacked them did so just to wake Rigu up. Gyro realizes they have no allies, only hostility and selfishness from all sides. The weight of the situation causes Gyro to have a complete breakdown. He screams in frustration, declaring he's sick of everyone prattling on and on. Fed up, he decides that if this is how things are going to be, he's doing things his own way, much to Rigu's surprise. Gyro abruptly announces that they are leaving. Rigu, startled, asks where he's planning to go. Gyro insists that he isn't running away. With newfound resolve, Gyro clenches his fists and declares that they're going to go and make sense of everything that has happened to them. Gyro looks out the window, speaking to a pair of crows perched there. He muses that this is what he gets for sticking his nose in other people's business, but resolves to figure something out on his own. Rigu, listening in, tells him not to count on its help. Outside the door, one of the guards yawns, complaining about how nothing ever happens. His partner reminds him not to let his guard down, as the Bureau controls the hospital and they're on a mission. Suddenly, the door to Gyro's room slams open with a tremendous crash, startling the two guards who frantically wonder what's going on. Gyro stands in the doorway, surrounded by a flock of crows, with Rigu perched on his shoulder. He nonchalantly thanks his avian friends for their assistance. With a menacing grin, Gyro sarcastically thanks the stunned guards for all their hard work. Gyro bursts out of the room, using the flock of crows to mob the guards. As he makes his escape, Rago comments on his recklessness, but seems pleased that his plan to convince the birds actually worked. The guards panic amidst the feathered chaos, shouting that the target has escaped and that they need to contact the boss immediately. Now safely away from the hospital, Gyro stands on a bridge and sincerely thanks the crows for helping them escape. Gyro offers the crows the food he promised them, but they decline, saying there's no need. Seeing something so interesting was reward enough. Rago asks Gyro what his plan is now, reminding him that the Bureau will find him sooner or later. Gyro looks ahead, replying that he doesn't need much time. Gyro states there is something he has to do no matter what. He arrives at a traditional Japanese estate with a nameplate that reads Azuma. Rago realizes it's Gyro's house. As Gyro approaches his home, Rago sarcastically asks if he's being loyal. Gyro explains that he doesn't think his grandfather could bear him simply going missing like that. Rago remains skeptical, asking how Gyro intends to explain the bizarre situation, doubting that the truth would be believed. But Gyro simply grins with confidence, stating that it's his gramps, and he's sure he'll understand. Still, acknowledging there's an order to these things, Gyro envelopes Rago in shadow, telling the Mononoke to stay hidden until called. Taking a final, steadying breath, he prepares to face his grandfather. Gyro opens the door to his home, only to be immediately confronted by his grandfather, who startles him by calling him a suspicious person. Gyro is flustered, stammering his grandfather's name. His grandfather scolds him, asking if that's the first thing he has to say after leaving home without permission. Gyro scratches his head, trying to explain that there were complicated circumstances. Ignoring his grandson's excuses, the old man turns and walks away, sternly telling Gyro to shut up and follow him. Gyro meekly obeys, following his grandfather out of the house and towards a nearby park. They arrive at a local athletics park. Gyro asks how far they are going, insisting he has a lot to explain. His grandfather cuts him off, stating that he doesn't have much time. Gyro questions why they had to come to the athletics park of all places. His grandfather stomps his foot decisively and declares it's because here, nothing will get in their way. Without another word, Gyro's grandfather suddenly strikes him with a powerful open palm blow, sending him reeling. Gyro stumbles back, clutching his bruised face and calling his grandfather a fool. He asks what that was for, but his grandfather furiously retorts, asking if Gyro truly realizes what he has done. Gyro sits on the ground, admitting that leaving home was his fault, but that it was no reason to hit him. His grandfather reveals he heard everything from Shiba and that he's not talking about that, but about the fact Gyro got himself possessed by a mononoke. Gyro looks on in shock as his grandfather continues, stating that he also knows the Bureau is now pursuing him. Completely bewildered, Gyro wonders how his grandfather could possibly know all of these secret details. His grandfather delivers a shocking revelation. He is a former member of the Bureau. Gyro can only stare in disbelief as Rago, sensing the gravity of the situation, begins to emerge from his shadowy confinement. With Rago now fully visible, the grandfather says that this explains the bloodlust he felt directed towards him when Gyro arrived. The grandfather correctly identifies Rago by name, stating that seeing him confirms everything. He declares that what's done is done, and as the failure of his grandson is his own responsibility, he must take action. Taking a martial arts stance, his eyes glowing with intimidating power, the old man declares that if Gyro is to be used by either the Bureau or other Mononoke, he will destroy them both here and now, and then kill himself after. Gyro panics, asking his grandfather what he's saying. Rago, however, seems perversely delighted by this turn of events, remarking that things are getting exciting. The grandfather leaps into action, shouting that there's no use complaining. Gyro can only curse, impressed by the old man's incredible agility despite his age. His grandfather's attack smashes into the ground with explosive force, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and debris as Gyro leaps back to dodge the blow. Gyro lands, gritting his teeth and acknowledging that his gramps is not holding back at all. Rago confirms that they are, in fact, screwed, but Gyro proudly replies, "That's my Gramps." Standing amidst the wreckage of the field, Gyro remarks that this is the first time he has ever seen his grandfather truly cut loose like this. In a blur of motion, his grandfather vanishes. Before Gyro can even register that he's disappeared, the old man is right in front of him, calling him too slow. He unleashes another devastating attack, launching a massive shockwave of force directly at Gyro. Gyro is sent sliding across the field, coughing and sputtering. As he struggles to recover, his grandfather explains that the martial arts of the Azuma lineage were designed to slaughter both humans and mononoke alike. The grandfather continues his lecture, revealing that the techniques he taught Gyro were merely the fundamentals for self-defense. He expresses his bitter disappointment that it has come to this, as he had planned to let the rest of the deadly Azuma techniques die with him. Promising a merciful end, the grandfather leaps into the air for a final strike, so Gyro won't have to suffer. However, down below, Rago clicks his tongue in annoyance, deciding to intervene by unleashing a single blow of his own. Just as the grandfather's finishing blow is about to land, a massive, spiked tendril of shadow erupts from the ground, blocking the attack. The force of the impact sends the grandfather staggering back. Gyro, kneeling on the ground, looks back in shock and calls out Rago's name. Rago angrily asks Gyro what he's doing and if he wants to die. It reminds him that the old man is seriously trying to kill them and offers to lend a hand. Gyro, now coursing with Rago's shadowy power, forcefully tells the mononoke not to decide things on its own. With determination, Gyro tells Rago not to get involved and that he told him to wait. In the distance, Shiba and Ichika arrive, calling out to the grandfather by his name, Toshimasa-san. The scene flashes back to the past, where a much younger Gyro bursts in on his grandfather, Toshimasa, telling him it's no time to be reading the newspaper and to follow him. In a flashback, a very young Gyro has climbed high into a tree to rescue a stranded kitten, reassuring the small animal that they are okay as he tries to climb back down. The tree branch snaps, sending young Gyro and the kitten plummeting towards the ground as he screams in terror. Toshimasa catches him just in time. A relieved Gyro exclaims, "Nice catch," but his grandfather looks down on him with a furious expression, calling him a stupid brat. Back on the ground, Toshimasa scolds his grandson, asking if he needs to get seriously hurt to understand that he shouldn't climb trees he can't get down from himself. Gyro looks away, muttering in protest. Gyro explains that the kitten was crying because it couldn't get down. His grandfather softens, acknowledging that it was good Gyro was trying to save it, but tells him he needs strength and resolve. Toshimasa wisely explains that acting without strength is simply reckless, and acting without resolve is irresponsible. He tells a teary-eyed Gyro that he is still young and lacks both. When Gyro asks what he should do if no one is around to help, Toshimasa bluntly tells him to give up without hesitation, much to Gyro's loud protest. The old man sighs, calling him a hard-headed brat. Toshimasa kneels down and affectionately ruffles Gyro's hair, telling him to get stronger by strengthening his body and spirit. Once he does that, he can climb any tree he wants. He advises him not to be rash until then. A happy young Gyro agrees and enthusiastically asks to start today's training, making his grandfather smile at his lively spirit. Returning to the present, Toshimasa tells a battered Gyro that this isn't training or a playground tussle. He warns him that he has stepped into a world of carnage, a road where lives are traded for goals. A grim flashback shows Toshimasa in his prime as a bureau agent, his name Azuma on his tactical vest, surrounded by bodies. He speaks of a world where one kills people and mononoke. The flashback continues with images of killing himself and staining one's body and mind dark red with the indeterminate blood of strangers and foes. The memory shows him and his canine partner facing a colossal, terrifying mononoke in a desolate landscape he calls a land of shadows where the sun never shines. In the present, Toshimasa clenches his fist, the memories swirling around him as he confirms that this brutal, shadowy world is the one he used to live in. With a look of profound sadness, he tells Gyro that he never wanted to send his cute little grandson to that world. Gyro turns away, bowing his head and apologizing, admitting that without thinking, he did something stupid. He turns back to face his grandfather, his eyes filled with a new fire. He states that he was clearly the one who stuck his head into this mess, and because of that, he will wipe his own blood off. He declares, "That's my resolve." A single tear runs down Toshimasa's face, moved by his grandson's words. He takes a step back, affectionately calling him a stupid brat. In the next instant, Gyro braces himself and apologizes to Rago for what he's about to do. A massive explosion erupts nearby, blowing a structure's doors apart as a startled Rago shouts his partner's name, realizing Gyro is the cause. It's revealed the explosion was a deliberate act by Gyro, who used Rago's power to create a diversion. He strains, telling Rago's power to stay with me for a little bit longer as he tries to control and expel it. With a final, guttural scream, Gyro unleashes a controlled blast of energy, creating another large explosion far away from their location. He did this to draw the attention of Shiba and Ichika, demonstrating his own form of strategy. His grandfather watches, understanding his intent. Rago calls Gyro an idiot, asking what he's thinking. Toshimasa, however, realizes what Gyro is trying to do. Show him his own version of strength and resolve by protecting everyone, including his pursuers, from the fight. Toshimasa tells him not to get full of himself. Gyro spits blood and gives a weary smirk, admitting that he's still lacking. Gyro reminds his grandfather of the advice he gave him long ago, to ask for help from those around you. He then looks at Rago, stating that for better or worse, he's not alone anymore. With a confident grin, Gyro tells his grandfather that Rago is going to lend him a hand, asking if there's anything wrong with that. Toshimasa is left speechless. Gyro presses him, yelling at him not to just say huh, and asking how he's supposed to know when to combine powers, as it's not something one gets right on the first try. Toshimasa finally understands. He recalls his own advice to Gyro as a child and realizes that to his grandson, it doesn't matter if someone is human, an animal, or even a mononoke, everything is equal. Toshimasa sighs in resignation, lamenting that Gyro's hard-headedness hasn't changed a bit. He repeats his old warning that Gyro will get seriously hurt, but concedes that he'll probably never change. As dusk settles over the ruined field, Toshimasa turns and walks away, declaring, "It's my loss." He raises his bandana like a white flag of surrender, admitting that he was the one lacking resolve. He tells the stupid brat to do what he wants. A battered but triumphant Gyro simply replies, "Yes, sir." Later that night, Gyro soaks in a hot bath, wincing from the sting of his wounds, but enjoying the relief. Rago sits on the edge of the tub, telling him to stop acting like an old man and to shut up and get back in the water. Gyro remembers something and apologizes to Rago for his selfishness during the fight. Rago huffs, saying he only had to watch the painful display, but Gyro retorts that everything has its limits. Rago looks at Gyro with surprising seriousness, telling him not to decide on his own to rush to his death like that. The Mononoke admits that if Gyro were to die again, it would have failed to save him. Gyro is taken aback by this rare moment of sincerity. Rago gruffly says that's all it wanted to say, then offers its strength whenever Gyro asks, telling him to be grateful and use it. Gyro relaxes in the water with a contented smile. He doesn't know what will happen now, but he knows they are in the same boat and might as well get along. He looks at Rago and asks, "Right, partner?" At a traditional Japanese estate, Gyro's grandfather, Toshimasa, speaks on the phone. He's told that a prisoner transport is being sent for Gyro, and he expresses his confidence in an agent named Azuma-san, relieved that his grandson didn't simply run away. The agent on the other end of the line, a long-haired man named Shiba, stands by a pier. He tells Toshimasa that they'll take care of Gyro now, as they have need of his unique spirit. Toshimasa accepts this and prepares for his grandson's departure. The scene cuts to the protagonist, Gyro Auma, packing a bag in his cluttered room. He grumbles about a lingering pain while his companion, the black cat Mononoke named Rigu, sits and watches. Rigu the cat begins to speak, telling Gyro that since they don't know what their captors want, they might not ever be able to come back here. Gyro quickly denies that he is worried about it. Rigu tells him that it's okay to be scared and quotes a master named Inoki, saying one can only understand a path by taking it. His bag packed, Gyro stands and walks with Rigu towards the door. As Gyro opens the door, he is startled to find his grandfather, Toshimasa, waiting for him with his arms crossed. Outside, Gyro is confronted by a young woman with reddish-brown hair in a ponytail. She introduces herself as an agent from the bureau, her to act as his guard so he doesn't run away again. The agent, Ichika Kishimojin, points out a disguised convoy truck, explaining that they'll be riding in the trailer. Annoyed, Gyro agrees, saying he'd rather not waste any more time. Gyro and his grandfather exchange some harsh, but clearly affectionate, last words. They both tell each other not to kick the bucket while they're apart, a gruff acknowledgement of their bond. With a final "see you later," Gyro closes the truck door, leaving his old life behind. Inside the transport, Gyro is shocked to find himself in handcuffs. Across from him sits Ichika, who complains about the misfortune of having to escort him. Gyro angrily questions what's going on, feeling like he's being treated like a prisoner. Ichika coldly tells him to be quiet, and that he's not too far off with his assumption. Staring at him intently, Ichika delivers a shocking statement that cuts through Gyro's anger. "You are no longer human." She elaborates, telling a furious Gyro that he is now a monster that has merged with a mononoke. As such, he is a target for them to crack down on, and he is no exception. As the truck rumbles down the street, Ichika's internal monologue reveals that while she may not understand the decisions of her superiors, she has the pride and responsibility of a professional to see her mission through. Gyro's anger boils over it being called a monster. His eye flashes with a dangerous, inhuman glint. In the driver's cabin, one of the agents thinks he hears something from the back, but his partner dismisses it. The confrontation escalates as Ichika grabs Gyro, telling him there are two things she hates more than anything: mononoke and men who look down on women. Unbeknownst to her, the special handcuffs on Gyro's wrists begin to creak and crack under his surging power. She stares him down with cold fury, declaring that she does not even acknowledge his existence. Suddenly, the commotion awakens Rigu, who had been napping peacefully. Stretching luxuriously, he tells the bickering brats to keep it down, complaining that he can't even take a nap. Gyro retorts that he was wondering why Rigu was so quiet, pointing out he's just been napping this whole time. The cat nonchalantly replies that he was, but all the racket woke him up. Rigu turns his sarcastic wit on Ichika, remarking that the bureau must be shorthanded if they're sending a wet behind-the-ears little girl to escort them. He adds that she shouldn't be so lively and should perhaps be more worried. The scene cuts to the drivers of the truck, who find themselves driving into an unnaturally thick fog. One of them peers into the gloom and wonders about a strange shape on the road ahead. In an instant of shocking brutality, the driver's head is violently ripped from his body. His partner stares in frozen terror as a massive shadow looms over the cab, a hand dripping with blood. A massive impact slams into the truck, throwing everything into chaos. Inside the trailer, Ichika is thrown forward and crashes into Gyro. As the two are sent tumbling, Rigu, the picture of indifference, simply yawns. The aftermath of the collision is devastating. The transport truck now sits at a dead standstill, its front cabin completely obliterated and hissing from the force of the attack, leaving its occupant stranded. Dazed from the impact, Gyro tries to get his bearings as his face throbs in pain. Ichika, already on her feet, tells him to stay put while she assesses the situation, wondering if their own drivers caused an accident. Ignoring Gyro's protest, Ichika steps out of the wrecked trailer. She emerges into a thick, unnatural fog that surrounds the vehicle, obscuring the view of the city. Ichika immediately recognizes the phenomenon, an aura barrier. She curses herself for not realizing it sooner. Her eyes then fall upon the culprits, who are sitting casually atop the wreckage of the driver's cab, celebrating their successful ambush. The attackers are revealed to be a pair of mononoke with an ironic sense of style. A massive, brutish monster is grotesquely chewing on the remains of a driver, while a smaller, leaner mononoke wearing a fat boy t-shirt sits on his shoulders, telling him to stop eating. The smaller mononoke addresses Ichika, mockingly stating how excited they were to attack the transport, only to be disappointed that the drivers didn't even make for a good appetizer. He casually compliments her on her dodge, however. The mononoke continues his derogatory taunts, calling Ichika a disappointment. Having had enough of his filth, she furiously activates a device on her gauntlet, declaring that his insults can only go so far. Ichika's clothing transforms, releasing its quantum camouflage mode. Her casual jacket is replaced by a sleek, black and white combat suit. The taunting mononoke is delighted by this development, grinning and exclaiming that this will be fun. The smaller mononoke tells his large companion to stop chewing on the remains, as it's time for dessert. The hulking beast stands, towering over Ichika with a menacing shadow as she prepares for battle. Now in her full combat gear, Ichika stares down the enemy with cold determination, leveling her pistol and taking aim. Ichika opens fire, but the massive mononoke easily deflects the bullets with his thick, durable arms. Switching tactics, Ichika holsters her pistols and closes the distance. In a flash of movement, she uses the larger mononoke's body as a springboard, launching herself into a spinning kick aimed at the smaller, faster enemy. Unsheathing a blade, Ichika continues her high-speed, acrobatic assault, flying through the air to press her attack. She lands a glancing blow on the smaller mononoke, but he's too quick. She realizes that while the big one is tough but slow, his partner is a different type entirely, and half-assed attacks won't work. As Ichika tries to analyze the situation, the smaller mononoke appears directly behind her in a blur of speed, taunting that this is no time for her to be spacing out. The mononoke lands a devastating blow, sending Ichika hurtling through the air and crashing hard against the side of the transport truck. Inside the trailer, Gyro feels the impact and calls out, asking what's happening outside. Rigu, looking out the back, sarcastically confirms that it's mononoke and that he'll kill Gyro for being so slow to realize. Gyro asks about the barrier he heard mentioned. Rigu explains that while Gyro and Ichika were busy with their flirting, he sensed the mononoke erecting the barrier, an aura of mist that has transported them to the hidden world, cutting them off completely. Gyro doesn't fully understand the concept of a hidden world inhabited by mononoke, but he knows it's bad. He frantically tells Rigu to help him get out of the handcuffs, but the cat calmly replies that he can't. Gyro struggles against the cuffs in a rage, finding them unexpectedly tough. Rigu explains that they aren't normal handcuffs. They're blocking Gyro's aura, and Rigu isn't strong enough to open them now. His solution? Go out there and make the girl take them off. As Ichika struggles against her foes, Rigu gives a cynical lecture. He states that ultimately, the Bureau and the Mononoke are the same. They're only interested in controlling Gyro and Rigu, viewing them as nothing more than a pawn. Rigu suggests they should just let the Bureau and the Mononoke kill each other. Gyro, however, isn't listening to the cat's detached logic, angrily shouting that he doesn't get it. Gyro looks toward the fight, his expression serious. He tells Rigu that in this kind of situation, there's someone out there fighting for their sake. With a newfound determination burning in his eyes, Gyro declares that as men, they can't just sit back with their thumbs up their butts and do nothing. Gyro bursts out of the back of the truck, just in time to see Ichika get brutally slammed to the ground. Annoyed, Gyro tells Rigu to shut up about his cool little speech as he takes in the scene. The smaller Mononoke turns his attention to the newcomer. With a wicked grin, he recognizes Gyro as the boy possessed by the brat Rago. As he speaks, dark, powerful energy begins to emanate from Gyro's arm. The Mononoke gives Gyro an ultimatum. He has 10 seconds to decide between being kidnapped or being eaten. Across the battlefield, Ichika realizes that the attackers knew about the transport and are after Rigu. Ignoring the Mononoke's threat, Gyro shoves his cuffed hands towards Ichika, yelling at her to open them since he's here to help. She stares back, bewildered. Ichika stubbornly refuses, shouting that she never asked for help and doesn't need it from Mononoke like him. While Rigu calls her an idiot, Gyro tries to argue that this is no time for her pride. Before the argument can continue, the hulking Mononoke attacks with a massive punch, forcing Ichika and Gyro to leap out of the way. The smaller Mononoke declares that thinking time is over and he has decided to feast on Gyro's guts. As Ichika struggles, Gyro yells at her to stop being stubborn, warning that they'll both be eaten at this rate. As the situation becomes desperate, Ichika flashes back to a tragic moment in her past. After her mother was killed by Mononoke in an accident at work, a 5-year-old Ichika holds her father's hand as relatives worry about the family line with no successor yet born. Hearing the adults lament that a daughter can't possibly be the successor, the young, tearful Ichika clenches her father's hand and makes a bold declaration. She will succeed the Kishimogen family. At her family's grave, she places down her teddy bear and promises to study and train every single day to one day become a great spy, just like her parents. Back in the present, Gyro's voice shouting her name snaps her out of the memory. Gyro throws her own words back at her, reminding her of the pride and responsibility she spoke of to carry out her mission. He challenges her to use whatever means she has to see it through. He finishes his speech by shouting that she is a pro. After all, his words hit their mark, breaking through her despair as the Mononoke closes in. Inspired by his words, Ichika's resolve hardens, shouting Gyro's challenge back. Use whatever means you have. She throws him the key to his aura-suppressing cuffs. With a tremendous roar, Gyro unleashes his power, shattering the supposedly unbreakable cuffs. A vortex of dark, Mononoke energy erupts from his body, signaling his transformation. Now fully powered up, Gyro declares that they'll finish this in one blow. Rigu's dark energy envelopes him as he lunges forward, a monstrous shadow ready to strike. The enemy Mononoke can only watch, stunned by this sudden turn of events. In a powerful display of their newfound partnership, Ichika and the transformed Gyro stand ready to launch their coordinated attack. After the intense battle, Gyro lies sprawled on the shattered pavement, complaining about his rough landing. Rigu looks down, completely unimpressed by his host's lack of grace. Gyro picks himself up and approaches Ichika, who has her back turned to him. He states bluntly that he won't be thanking her for her help. Ichika retorts that she doesn't need thanks and won't be thanking him either. As Rigu mutters about her being uncute, Gyro clarifies that they only saved her so that she, in turn, could protect them. Gyro establishes their new dynamic, a clean slate where no one owes anyone anything. Ichika silently accepts this, establishing a tense truce between the two. When Gyro calls her you again, she cuts him off, finally introducing herself properly. Ichika Kishimogen. That's my name. Accepting this, Gyro asks the crucial question, what now? The two stand before the remains of the transport truck, the reality of their situation sinking in. They are stranded. Ichika's solution is simple. They're walking. Gyro is shocked to learn she doesn't even have a wallet. Elsewhere, the agent Shiba contacts his superiors, requesting to make a direct report regarding Gyro, Azuma, and Rigu. The scene shifts to a surreal space where Ryusuke Shiba stands before a council of elders, represented by floating gnome masks. As section chief, he formally requests the establishment of a new unit centered around using Gyro Azuma as a spy. The masked elders debate the proposal. One questions Shiba's sanity for wanting to use someone merged with a Mononoke as a spy. Another notes, however, that Rigu appears to be cooperative with Gyro at the very least. Shiba presses his argument, stating that since the enemy's target is Rigu, they can dangle Gyro in front of them as bait. He notes Gyro as shinobi blood and that his skills will grow far faster in the field than their current agents. In just 1 week, Gyro Azuma's life has been turned upside down. As he brushes his teeth, he reflects on the whirlwind of events. he met a strange mononoke cat, was attacked by another mononoke, actually died, had a fight with his grandpa, and was accosted by government agents. His ordinary life has become anything but. And now, he's here, standing on a desolate pier. Gyro looks out at the industrial port, completely bewildered by his new reality. He feels that if anyone asked him to explain what's happening, he wouldn't even know where to begin. A man with long dark hair, Shiba, approaches him. Having come from someone who broke out of hospital, he asks Gyro if he has gotten used to his new life. Gyro, still brushing his teeth, retorts that he isn't running away. He knows he's been under constant surveillance and has had more than enough time to cool down. He spits, wondering how anyone could call this a new life. Shiba lights a cigarette, stating that before anything else, they need to confirm Gyro's safety for the Bureau's sake and for Gyro's as well. Gyro looks on with suspicion, questioning Shiba's motives and his underlying lack of trust. They arrive at a shabby-looking warehouse. Gyro asks incredulously if this is seriously their base of operations. Shiba confirms that, as disappointing as it may look, this is indeed the base for Special Section 2. Shiba explains that each section of the Bureau operates out of its own independent and inconspicuous facilities, like office buildings, factories, or even shrines. Gyro takes offense at Shiba, saying, "You guys," pointing out that he isn't a part of their group. Shiba thinks to himself that being in the lowest priority security section sucks. A close-up of Shiba, who looks on with a cool, calculating expression as he continues to smoke his cigarette. Shiba tells him that he's already one of them, calling him Gyro Auma. He then reveals the name of their unit, Black Torch. Gyro, however, is defiant. He declares he doesn't care what they're called, and that he's only here for his own sake, not to become a spy or work for them. Gyro clarifies his stance. He says that all we want is freedom, implying himself and the Mononoke Rago inside him. For them, fighting other Mononoke is just a means to achieve that freedom. That's all there is to it. Shiba internally notes that based on Gyro's personality, trying to reason with him might have the opposite effect. Just then, a black car pulls up to the shabby warehouse they've been standing in front of. A cheerful young woman with short black hair steps out, greeting the section chief. Gyro wonders who she is. Shiba introduces her as Special Section 2's Assistant Director, Hana Usami, one of his few subordinates. A man with glasses gets out of the driver's seat, telling Hana not to worry about the bags. As everyone gathers, Gyro eyes the newcomer suspiciously and asks Shiba what's with the playboy. Shiba cryptically replies that he is Gyro's new friend. Inside the warehouse, which serves as their lounge and operations center, the team is assembled. It is announced that for this reason, they were assigned a new member starting today. The new member is introduced as Reiji Kirihara. He's 17, like the others, and the heir of a distinguished family of spies. Gyro, sitting on the couch with Ichika Kishimojin, scoffs at the introduction, dismissing Reiji as a rich brat. Reiji Kirihara turns his attention to Ichika Kishimojin, asking if she is the one. Gyro interrupts, questioning what he means by more. Reiji ignores him, continuing that he'd heard about her high aspirations and was wondering what kind of person she'd be. Reiji compliments Ichika, saying he never imagined she would be this cute in person. The unexpected praise leaves Ichika blushing and speechless, while Gyro tells her to hold on, flustered by the forward comment. Reiji adjusts his glasses with a cool, confident expression. His focus is sharp and analytical as he says, "That's him." Gyro glares back, annoyed. Reiji reveals he read the report on Gyro, confirming that he seems like a troublesome type. He adds that he is still reluctant to be in the same unit as a half-wit like him, which makes Ichika nervous. The tension between Gyro and Reiji boils over. Gyro challenges him, asking what's his deal. Reiji coolly replies that his motto is being honest no matter what, unapologetically insulting Gyro to his face. The insults escalate. Gyro calls Reiji a shitty four eyes, asking if he's picking a fight. Reiji retorts by calling him a half-demon. Ichika tries to de-escalate, but Hana seems to think the situation is perfect, while Shiba watches with detached amusement. As Gyro and Reiji stand ready to brawl, Ichika yells at the half-demon and shitty Four Eyes to take their fight outside. Shiba, however, intervenes with a smirk. Looking at Hana, who is surprised, he tells the two rivals to not just take it outside, but to get serious. The scene shifts to the yard outside the warehouse. Gyro and Reiji stand opposite each other, preparing for a duel. The other members of the section, including Shiba, Ichika, and Hana, sit on a pile of wooden pallets to watch. As the two face off, Ichika asks what's going on, wondering if it's a duel like in a Western movie. Hana excitedly records the event on her phone. Shiba calmly explains that this confrontation is part of it, but the main goal is to establish the unit. Shiba elaborates that he proposed a higher-level test, one of which was an exam of Gyro Auma's helpfulness. Now that Rago's power is free, they need to see how it can be properly used. As the duel is set to be recorded, Gyro prepares himself, readying his gloves for the impending fight. On Gyro's shoulder, the mononoke Rago finally awakens with a yawn. The cat complains that Gyro made a fuss and woke him up right after he'd managed to fall asleep. Gyro calls him Sleeping Beauty, noting that it's almost noon. Reiji asks why Gyro is so angry at him. Gyro, with Rago on his shoulder, retorts that it's because Reiji is a shitty, annoying four-eyed playboy. He then turns to Shiba, demanding to know how come Reiji gets a wooden sword. Shiba admits he forgot to explain. Shiba explains the prestige of Reiji's lineage. Since ancient times, the Kurihara family has specialized in sword techniques, having taught swordsmanship to the shogun's family alongside famous schools like the Yagyu Shinkajiryu. Of course, none of this is in the public records. Shiba offers Gyro a spare weapon, but he declines, saying he doesn't know how to use one. Reiji tells him that he should use his own weapon, the particularly valuable weapon he recently acquired, referring to Rago. Gyro furiously rejects the idea, shouting that Rago isn't a weapon. He clenches his bandaged fists and declares with determination that this is his fight and his alone. Hearing Gyro, Rago tells him not to, but in and decides to go back to sleep. Gyro screams back that he doesn't want anyone interfering anyway. He's determined to handle this himself. Reiji dismisses the situation as a farce. He scrapes his wooden sword against the ground, creating a line in the dirt. Gyro, seeing this, angrily demands to know what he's doing. Reiji explains that he is handicapping himself, as it wouldn't feel right otherwise. He arrogantly taunts Gyro, asking if he should also close his eyes or turn his back, confident he can take him down in a single blow. Watching from the sidelines, Ichika tells Shiba that it seems both fighters are holding back. Shiba replies that there's nothing they can do about it now. Gyro, provoked by Reiji's condescending attitude, clenches his fist and mutters, "Bring it on, bastard." Fueled by rage, Gyro gets into a fighting stance. He snarls that Reiji's smug face and glasses are pissing him off, and he's going to crush them both. Gyro leaps high into the air, attempting to attack from above. Hana exclaims that since he's moving through the air, Reiji won't hear him coming. Shiba, however, seems unimpressed, thinking to himself that it doesn't matter. With his eyes closed, Reiji remains perfectly calm. He explains that for a true swordsman, measuring distance with sight or sound is second-rate. They use mere presence, as distance is absolute. As Gyro descends for the strike, Reiji effortlessly creates a barrier with his sword, deflecting the attack. He can create this defensive shield in a full 360-degree radius around him. Ichika is impressed, and Shiba calmly notes that it's fine. Reiji looks towards the seated observers, commenting that although Gyro possesses an incredible power, it seems to be wasted on him. He adds that he doubts Gyro will live much longer, a sentiment that brings a smirk to Shiba's face. Gyro lands on his feet, wiping his mouth. To Reiji's surprise, he seems completely unharmed by the deflected attack. Gyro asks, "What's wrong?" and declares that the real fight is just beginning. Reiji seems impressed that Gyro can take a hit, remarking that he's a mononoke, after all. Gyro spits defiantly, saying that ever since he was a kid, his violent old grandfather had been working him to the bone. Jiro's eyes narrow as he dismisses Reiji's impressive sword skills as nothing but a playground sword game. Angered by the insult, Reiji steps forward, explaining that the Kurihara sword style isn't mere martial art, but a complete battle technique polished by great men through generations of bloodshed. His honor as a swordsman insulted, Reiji glares at Gyro. He states that calling his family's technique a game is an offense that merits certain death. Gyro grins wildly, unfazed by the threat. He challenges Reiji, shouting, "Just try and kill me then." Watching the intensity ramp up, Shiba notes to a concerned Hana that this is the climax of their fight. Without hesitation, Gyro bolts forward, charging straight at Reiji. Ichika calls him an idiot for his reckless approach. Hana, still filming, wonders aloud if he has a plan, but Shiba is certain he doesn't. Gyro continues his desperate charge. It's a foolish move. He has literally brought his fists to a sword fight. Reiji's barrier has a range of at least 2 meters, so Gyro has to somehow dodge or deal with that inevitable first strike. The situation seems the same as before, but this time Reiji is using his eyes and ears, not just his presence. At this rate, it seems Gyro will be defeated. But just as Reiji prepares to strike, Gyro successfully enters his opponent's range. With a loud snap, Reiji unleashes a blindingly fast attack. The resulting impact appears to shatter Gyro's head in a spray of black particles, a seemingly fatal blow. However, Reiji's attack was a feint. He didn't strike with his sword, but instead flicked a projectile from its tip. A close-up on his face reveals his focused, determined expression as the projectile flies towards its target. In an incredible display of speed, Gyro ducks under the projectile, which was the broken tip of Reiji's wooden sword. The attack misses, and Gyro emerges unscathed, ready to counter. Reiji is in disbelief. He realizes that from the very start, Gyro wasn't aiming for him, but for the sword itself. Gyro's fist is poised to strike, having completely outmaneuvered him. With a furious cry, Gyro lands a devastating punch, sending Reiji flying backwards. The watching group is stunned. Hana exclaims that Gyro did it, destroying the sword. Shiba notes that while he thought Gyro was just being reckless, he managed to figure out Reiji's range. Reiji coughs up blood, analyzing his defeat. He realizes that a wooden sword shouldn't break that easily, and that his counterattack would have worked if he had started it after Reiji began swinging. This means Gyro perfectly read his opponent's move. After only one real attack, Gyro holds the broken half of the sword. Gyro holds the broken sword over his shoulder like a bat. He declares that they're now tied with 1 hit each. Reiji, on one knee and wiping blood from his mouth, glares back, acknowledging the hit. Gyro casually tosses the broken piece of the sword away, taunting Reiji that he can no longer use his friend to fight. Gyro continues his taunts with a wicked grin, asking the rich boy if he wants to keep going or give up. He even offers to let Reiji off the hook if he buys him a juice, further infuriating his opponent. Reiji gets to his feet, calling Gyro's taunts ridiculous and something a middle schooler would say. He pulls his tie loose, angrily stating that the idea of him giving up is silly. Gyro grins, realizing the score is settled. Reiji adjusts his glasses. Both fighters understand that the preliminary test of skill is over. Now, the real fight begins. With intense, split-screen glares, both Gyro and Reiji have the same thought for each other: go to hell. With weapons out of the picture, the duel immediately devolves into a wild, bare-knuckle brawl as the two rivals charge at each other. Ichika, watching the chaotic scene, asks Shiba what's happening. The others can only watch, confused, as the technical duel has now become a messy slugfest. Shiba calmly explains that they're simply expressing their guts and toughness. Hana, still filming, remarks that they're talking with their fists, man to man, and romanticizes the brawl as youth. Ichika, however, is completely exasperated by the whole display. The brawl continues, with both Gyro and Reiji landing simultaneous, brutal punches to each other's faces. Sometime later, Reiji slowly comes to. He groggily realizes he blacked out. He sees Gyro sitting on the ground nearby, who taunts him, asking how he's feeling. Gyro, looking equally exhausted, sits on the ground. Reiji asks where everyone else is. Gyro replies that they probably went back inside. Since Reiji woke up after him, Gyro concludes their match was a draw. Gyro casually tosses a can to Reiji, saying here. Reiji catches it, asking what it is. Gyro tells him it's juice, though he can't resist calling him a numbskull and a pain in the ass. Gyro admits that after thinking about it, he was lucky. He acknowledges that if it had been a real battle, Reiji's first attack would have killed him. Furthermore, his own counterattack only worked because the sword was made of wood. A real blade would have cut his hand in half. In a surprising show of sportsmanship, Gyro concedes defeat. He says this time, it's your win, holding up a can of Oka soda. Reiji looks at the can of green tea soda, remarking that it looks disgusting and calling Gyro a middle schooler. As Reiji opens the can, it erupts, spraying soda all over his face. Gyro bursts into maniacal laughter, revealing his prank. He shook the can up while Reiji was still knocked out. You fell for it, idiot. Gyro continues to roar with laughter at his successful prank, mocking Reiji's smug smirk from before. Reiji is left drenched and furious. The commotion wakes Rago, who complains about the noisy brats and tells his trash kin to shut up. Back inside the base, Hannah hands the SD card with the footage of the duel to Shiba. She asks nervously if this is really okay, but Shiba assures her she did a great job filming. Shiba explains that he doesn't expect the video alone to convince the higher-ups. Their real test is tomorrow, where their usefulness as a unit will be determined in the field. Ichika expresses concern, arguing it's way too early for the inexperienced Gyro and Reiji. Shiba counters that training them by the book won't help either. Hannah asks what their mission will be, noting they haven't been given one yet. As Shiba examines the SD card, he cryptically replies, then we'll find one ourselves. Shiba lights a cigarette, a sly look on his face. He adds that he has the perfect thing in mind. If it works out, he says, they will finally see the enemy's true form. The chapter ends on a mysterious note. A black flame, symbolizing the Black Torch unit, burns brightly. This is something important, something that only they can do as they get closer to the truth.